What if the future of the One Piece world was never meant to follow fate? What if the man who chased freedom above all else chose a path no one expected? In a world ruled by pirates, marines, and monsters of the sea, what if Monkey D. Luffy didn't just become the Pirate King, but rose as the Harem King, binding the strongest women of the seas to his destiny? This is not the story you were told. This is not the timeline the world remembers. Here, power bends to will. Love becomes a weapon, and freedom takes a form the seas have never seen before. Welcome to One Piece What If, where legends are rewritten, and this time, Luffy doesn't sail alone. Chapter 1. The Banquet of the Hearts. The air in the galley of the Thousand Sunny was thick with the scent of sea salt, roasted meat, and an underlying tension that had nothing to do with the looming threat of the world government. Monkey D. Luffy, the man who would be king of the pirates, sat at the head of the long wooden table, his cheeks bulging with a literal mountain of Sanji's 5-star fried chicken. To his right sat Nami, her eyes tracing the scar beneath his eye with a gaze that had softened significantly since their days at Arlong Park. To his left, Nico Robin sipped her coffee, a cryptic, knowing smile playing on her lips as she watched the chaotic dynamic of the crew. Luffy, Nami began, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. Have you ever thought about what happens after we find the One Piece? Not just the adventure, but the home. Luffy swallowed a bone whole and tilted his head, his straw hat sliding back. Home. The Sunny is home. And the sea. Why? You want more oranges? Sanji slammed a platter of seafloor risotto onto the table, his eye twitching. She's talking about something deeper. You rubber-brained idiot. Though it pains me to say it, every woman from the East Blue to Wano seems to be tethered to your soul by a damn anchor. It wasn't an exaggeration. Ever since the fall of Kaido and Big Mom, the Straw Hat Grand Fleet had taken on a secondary, more personal dimension. It wasn't just about ships and flags, it was about the queens and warriors who found themselves unable to look away from the sun god brilliance of Luffy's grin. The atmosphere shifted when a Den Den Mushi began to ring. It wasn't just any snail, it was the golden-plated receiver from Amazon Lily. Luffy. The voice of Boa Hancock boomed through the room, sounding both commanding and desperately love-struck. The Kuja fleet has entered the waters of the New World. I have stayed away to respect your journey. But my heart is a collapsing fortress. I am coming to claim my place as your empress. Before Luffy could respond, a second snail, this one decorated with desert sand patterns, clicked into the frequency. Hancock, is that you? Vivi's voice was clear, matured by the struggles of the reverie. I'm currently aboard a revolutionary ship with Sabo. We're heading to the Sunny's coordinates. Luffy, Alabasta needs its hero, but I think I just need my captain. The galley fell into a deafening silence. Zoro, who had been napping against the wall, opened one eye. You've got a real problem, Captain. And for once, you can't punch your way out of it. Luffy looked from the snails to Nami's trembling hands, to Robin's analytical stare, and then out the window at the vast, unpredictable ocean. He didn't see a harem. He didn't see a political headache. He saw people he loved, people who had bled for him, and people he couldn't imagine leaving behind in the wake of his dream. I don't know about being a king of whatever you're talking about, Luffy said, his voice dropping the playful tone for something more grounded. But I told you guys before, I want to be the person with the most freedom on the sea. And if freedom means I don't have to choose between the people who make me happy, then I'm gonna keep them all. Nami's jaw dropped. Sanji turned into a literal statue of salt. Is he proposing to the entire world? Usopp whispered, terrified. No, Robin chuckled, resting her chin on her hand. He's just being Luffy. He wants the meat, the adventure, and the family. All of it. The horizon flickered. On the port side, the perfume-scented sails of the Perfume Yuta appeared. On the starboard, a ship flying the flag of the Nefertari family. Behind them, the pink-tinged clouds of a Sky Island ship began to descend. The world was converging on the Sunny. The era of the Pirate King was evolving into something the history books were never prepared to record. The era of the Sun God's court. Luffy stood up, adjusted his hat, and grinned. Oi, Sanji, make more food. Everyone's coming over for a party. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm of Flowers. The Thousand Sunny anchored off the coast of Glistening Atoll, a lush, neutral island known for its sprawling white beaches and iridescent lagoons. It was meant to be a simple supply stop, but the horizon was currently choked with the silhouettes of legendary vessels. The perfume Yuta glided to a halt on the left, its giant sea serpents hissing at the revolutionary scout ship flanking the Sunny's right. Above, a giant white bird, Karu in a flight goggles, descended from a high-altitude transport, carrying Princess Vivi Nefertari. Luffy stood on the figurehead, waving both arms frantically. "Vivi, Hancock, over here, check out the meat Sanji just cooked." The deck of the Sunny became a battlefield of elegance and authority before a single word was even spoken. Boa Hancock stepped off her ship, her heels clicking against the gangplank with the weight of a conqueror. Her long, raven hair flowed behind her, and her gaze was fixed solely on Luffy, until she spotted Nami standing near the mast. "You," Hancock pointed a slender finger, her back arched so far she was looking down at the navigator. "You are the one who spends the most time in his presence. Explain yourself, thief." Nami didn't flinch, she crossed her arms, a playful but sharp glint in her eyes. "I'm the navigator, Hancock. Without me, he doesn't even make it to the next island, let alone to you. And for the record, I've shared more meals and storms with him than anyone." Vivi landed nearby, dusting off her desert robes. She looked between the pirate empress and the navigator. "It's been a long time, Nami. But I didn't come all this way just to reminisce. After the reverie, after everything my family lost, Luffy was the only light left. I'm not letting that light go again." Suddenly, the air temperature dropped. A flurry of pink petals swirled onto the deck as Rebecca, the gladiator princess of Dressrosa, stepped forward from a secondary ship that had slipped into the harbor. "I heard the Pirate King was making a stand. Dressrosa owes him its life, and I owe him my heart." Sanji was currently prostrate on the deck, weeping tears of both jealousy and spiritual transcendence. "It's a miracle, a terrifying, beautiful, soul-crushing miracle." Luffy hopped down from the lion's head, landing right in the middle of the growing circle of women. He looked at Hancock, then Vivi, then Nami, Robin, and Rebecca. He didn't look confused, he looked thoughtful, which was far more dangerous for the peace of the world. "Everyone's here," Luffy laughed, punching his palm. "This is great, we can have the biggest banquet ever. Why are you all looking at each other like you're about to fight? Are you hungry?" Hancock stepped closer, her face flushing crimson. "Luffy, my beloved, these women, they seek to claim your name. Only a queen of the Kuja is fit to stand beside the Pirate King." "A queen?" Luffy tilted his head, "but Vivi is a queen too, sort of. And Nami's the queen of the sea. And Robin's the queen of books and stuff." Robin chuckled, leaning against the railing. "He has a point, Hancock. Luffy doesn't see the world in hierarchies. He sees people he wants to protect. If you want to stay by his side, you might have to learn to share the deck." The tension reached a breaking point when a shadow loomed over the entire harbor. The Victoria Punk wasn't there, nor was the Polar Tang, but a massive, sleek ship belonging to the Vinsmoke family arrived, with Reiju standing on the prow, blowing a kiss toward the Sunny. "It seems I'm just in time for the party," Reiju called out, her voice purring. "I hope there's room for one more, sister, in this little alliance." Luffy beamed. "Reiju, yeah, there's plenty of meat." Hancock's hockey flared, cracking the deck slightly. "There will be no sharing. I will turn every one of you to stone before I let you take my husband." "He's not your husband yet," Vivi and Nami shouted in unison. Luffy grabbed a giant ham bone and took a massive bite, looking at the chaos with a wide, innocent grin. "I don't know what a harem is, but if it means all my friends live on the same island and we eat together every day, then I'm gonna be the king of that too." The declaration was so pure, so quintessentially Luffy, that it momentarily stunned the most powerful women in the world into silence. They looked at him, the man who had challenged the world for a single friend, and realized that the only way to be with him was to join his whirlwind. "Fine," Hancock hissed, though she was still blushing. "But I get to sit next to him at dinner." "In your dreams," Nami barked. The War of the Hearts had officially begun, and the Grand Line would never be the same. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The Banquet and the Admiral's Interference. The shores of glistening Atoll were transformed into a chaotic carnival of legendary proportions. Long wooden tables had been dragged from the ships and lined up end to end across the white sands. Giant roasted beasts from the island's interior sizzled over open pits, and barrels of the finest Alabasta wine were being tapped by the dozen. Luffy sat at the center of the madness, his PLA tape piled so high with meat it defied the laws of physics. To his immediate right, Hancock was hand-peeling grapes with a look of intense devotion. To his left, Vivi was recounting stories of the new Alabasta. Her hand resting casually on Luffy's arm, a move that earned her a continuous, soul-piercing glare from the Pirate Empress. "Luffy, you must try this," Hancock whispered, leaning in. "It is owned only on the highest peaks of Amazon Lily. It is as sweet as my love for." "Ooh, meat," Luffy shouted, completely ignoring the sentiment as he snatched a leg of ham from a passing Sanji. Nami and Yamato were engaged in a competitive drinking contest nearby. Yamato, laughing boisterously, slammed her mug down. "Luffy, since I'm Odin, that makes me your most reliable samurai spouse, right? We'll travel the world and write a journal together." Nami slammed her own mug down, her face flushed. "In what world does being Odin make you a spouse? And I'm the one who writes the maps. I'm the one who knows where he's going." The laughter and bickering were cut short by a sudden, unnatural chill in the air. The bright, tropical sun seemed to dim, and a thick, suffocating pressure settled over the beach. From the tree line, a man stepped out, his steps slow and deliberate. He wore a tattered marine coat over a dark suit, his eyes obscured by the brim of his hat. It was Admiral Ryokugyu, Aramaki. Behind him, the forest seemed to come alive, roots and vines snaking toward the banquet like hungry serpents. "What a troublesome gathering," Aramaki muttered, his voice echoing with disdain. "The world government is in shambles. And here you are, the biggest threats to order, playing house with the Pirate King. This island is a nest of vipers." Luffy stood up, his playful expression vanishing. He dropped his meat, his eyes shadowing under the brim of his straw hat. "Hey, green guy, you're ruining the party. My friends are eating," Aramaki sneered, his fingers transforming into sharpened wooden spikes. "Friends? You've gathered the princesses and empresses of the world. You're not just a pirate anymore, Straw Hat. You're a catalyst for total global collapse. I'll take all your heads at once." Before Luffy could take a single step forward, he felt a flurry of motion around him. "Stay back, Luffy-sama," Hancock roared, her Mero no Mi powers glowing with a pink, lethal light. "How dare you interrupt a meal prepared for my husband? He's my captain first," Nami shouted, drawing her Klima tact. "Ninpo! Rete!" A massive bolt of black lightning crashed down from a localized cloud, striking the advancing roots. Vivi drew her peacock slashers, her eyes burning with the fire of a protector. "You won't touch him, not while Alabasta stands." Yamato swung her kanabo, Takaru, unleashing a blast of cold haki. "I'll defend the shogun's ally with my life." Aramaki found himself facing an impossible wall. It wasn't just the Straw Hat crew, it was a unified front of the most powerful women in the world. All acting with a singular, protective fury. The Admiral's vines were turned to stone by Hancock, frozen by Yamato, and incinerated by Reiju's poisonous secretions as she joined the fray from the flank. Luffy blinked, watching the coordinated assault. He didn't feel sidelined, he felt proud. He let out a loud, boisterous laugh. "Shishishi. See, green guy, my crew and my friends are the strongest. You can't win." Aramaki, overwhelmed by the sheer variety of haki and devil fruit powers being hurled at him, realized he had walked into a buzzsaw. He retreated into the forest, his wooden form splintering under the combined pressure. This isn't a pirate crew. This is a storm." As the Admiral fled back to his warship, the tension on the beach broke instantly. The women turned back to Luffy, their protective fury immediately melting back into competitive affection. "Did you see that, Luffy?" Hancock asked, clutching her cheeks. "I was like a goddess of death for you. I hit him with the biggest lightning bolt yet." Nami countered, grabbing Luffy's shoulders. Luffy just grinned, picking up his meat again. "That was awesome. You guys are great. Now, let's get back to the food. I haven't even tried the cake yet." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the assembly of legends, the world outside might have been in chaos, but on Glistening Atoll, the Pirate King was content. He didn't just have a harem, he had an army of hearts that would burn the world down to keep him smiling. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Queen's Council. The threat of the Admiral had passed, but a much more dangerous atmosphere was brewing in the captain's quarters of the Thousand Sunny. Luffy had been banished to the deck to eat with the men, leaving the most powerful women in the world to convene in a room that felt far too small for their collective egos. Nami sat at the head of the navigation table, tapping a pen rhythmically. To her right sat Nico Robin, her expression unreadable. Across from them, Boa Hancock occupied a velvet chair she had brought from her own ship, looking at the others as if they were common barnacles. Vivi, Rebecca, Yamato, and Reiju rounded out the circle. We can't keep doing this, Nami started, her tone professional yet strained. Every time we dock, there's a brawl over who sits next to him or who feeds him. Luffy is going to Raftel. It's the most dangerous voyage in history. We need a system. A system, Hancock scoffed, flipping her hair. The only system required is for the rest of you to acknowledge my position as the Pirate King's primary consort. I have the fleet, the beauty, and the lineage. Lineage doesn't map the Grand Line, Vivi countered calmly, though her eyes were sharp. And affection isn't a competition of who is the loudest. We all have ties to him. If we fight each other, we make him vulnerable. Robin leaned forward, her fingers interlaced. Luffy-kun doesn't understand. Exclusive, love. To him, love is me, freedom, and the people who stand by him. If we force him to choose, he'll simply choose everyone, and then get distracted by a passing beetle. She's right, Yamato boomed, laughing. I've known him a short time compared to some of you, but he's like a mountain. You don't own a mountain, you just live on it. Reiju tapped her chin, a sly smirk on her lips. How about a Queen's Council? A rotating guard. We divide the duties of supporting the Pirate King. One handles the politics, one handles the navigation, one handles the defense, and we all share the celebration. The room went silent. The idea of sharing Luffy was anathema to Hancock, but the logic was undeniable. Even her conqueror's haki couldn't force Luffy to be a traditional husband. I propose a set of rules, Nami said, scribbling on a piece of parchment. No sabotaging each other. If one of us is helping Luffy, the others assist. The meat clause. No one interrupts Luffy during mealtime unless the ship is sinking. The freedom rule. Luffy is never told he must stay in one place. And a fourth, Hancock added, her voice dropping to a whisper. Once a week, I get to take him for a walk on the beach. Alone. Agreed, Vivi said, provided I get the same during the desert treks. As the council deliberated, the door creaked open. Luffy poked his head in, his face covered in frosting. Hey, Sanji made a giant cake that looks like a whale. You guys want some? You've been in here forever. He looked at the women, the empress, the princesses, the warriors, and saw them all staring at the parchment on the table. What's that, a new map? Luffy asked. Nami smiled, a genuine, warm look that softened the room. No, Luffy, it's a treaty. We're making sure the Pirate King has everything he needs to win. Luffy beamed, not grasping the romantic complexity but feeling the surge of loyalty. Awesome, I knew you guys would get along. Now come on, the cake is disappearing fast because of Usopp and Chopper. As they filed out of the room, Hancock lingered for a moment, looking at Nami. I still don't like you, Navigator. The feeling is mutual, Empress, Nami replied, tucking the treaty into her belt. But for him, I'll play nice. The council was formed. The Pirate King now had a cabinet of hearts, and the world was about to find out that the Straw Hat Fleet was more than just ships, it was a dynasty. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The Frozen Heart of Iron. The Thousand Sunny pushed through the jagged ice floes of Whiteout Island, a place where the wind howled like a wounded bee's. Tea and the temperature plummeted fast enough to freeze a man's breath before it left his lips. The island was a wasteland of silver pines and buried ruins, supposedly holding the next clue to the final poneglyph. It's freezing. Usopp wailed, his nose turning a violent shade of blue. Luffy, surprisingly, was only wearing his usual vest and shorts, his body radiating a strange, steam-like heat thanks to his Gear 5 awakening. But even the sun god felt the bite of the polar gale. Shishishi, it's like being inside a giant shaved ice bowl. Luffy laughed, though his teeth were chattering rhythmically. The Queen's Council immediately went into high alert. The Treaty of Glistening Atoll was about to be put to its first practical test, the Warmth Initiative. Luffy-sama, Hancock cried out, her Salome snake staff coiling around her to provide a windbreak. She stepped forward, draped in a massive cloak of white tiger fur. You must wear this. It was crafted by the finest weavers of Amazon Lily. It is infused with the warmth of 1,000 suns, or at least, the warmth of my devotion. Before she could drape it over his shoulders, Nami stepped in, holding a high-tech, battery-operated aided thermal coat she'd modified with Frankie. The tiger fur will get wet in the snow and weigh him down, Hancock. This uses heat dials. Luffy, put this on, and I'll adjust the temperature for you. A machine, Hancock sneered. My love is more efficient than any dial. Move aside, Yamato interrupted, her skin shimmering with the frost of her Oguchi no Makami form. She picked Luffy up like he as a sack of grain and tucked him against her side. I'm a frost deity. I can regulate his temperature better than anyone by balancing the cold air with my own hockey heat. You're literally made of ice. Vivi shouted, struggling through the snow in a thick Alabasta-style parka. Luffy, come here. We have a portable heating stone from the desert ruins. It's much safer. Luffy was being pulled in 4 different directions, his rubber limbs stretching like taffy. Guys, I'm fine. I'm bouncy. Bouncy things don't freeze. I think. The bickering was interrupted by rumbling beneath the snow. A CK of iron-hide wolves, beasts the size of small houses with fur made of metallic needles, burst from the drifts. They were the apex predators of Whiteout Island, and they looked hungry. Perfect timing, Reiju muttered, stepping forward and shedding her heavy coat to reveal her raid suit. I needed to get my blood pumping. The women moved with a terrifying synchronization. Hancock didn't wait for a command, she leapt into the air, her perfume femur shattering the metallic hides of the wolves into stone fragments. Nami swung her Kleem attack, creating a localized heat front that caused the wolves' metal fur to expand and crack. Yamato swung her Kanabo, clearing a path through the pack with a single, Reigo Hucka, while Vivi used her peacock slashers to divert the stragglers toward Robin's waiting, Cuerpo Fleur, arms, which snapped them like dry twigs. Luffy watched from the center of the clearing, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Whoa, you guys are amazing. I didn't even have to do anything. That's the point, Luffy, Robin said, walking back to him and wiping a snowflake from his cheek. If you're going to be the king, you need to let your court handle the pests. As the wolves retreated, the group found a small cavern shielded from the wind. Inside, the women huddled around Luffy. The competitive fire hadn't died, but it had shifted. Instead of fighting over who gave him the coat, they ended up sitting in a circle around him, creating a human barrier of warmth. Hancock held his right hand, Nami his left, and Yamato sat behind him like a giant, fuzzy pillow. Luffy leaned back, a piece of dried meat in his mouth, feeling the collective warmth of the strongest women in the world. Hey, Nami, yeah, Luffy, being a harem king is kinda cozy. Nami sighed, her face turning pink, though she blamed it on the cold. Don't get used to it, you idiot. We still have to find that poneglyph. But for tonight, Vivi whispered, leaning her head on his shoulder, we can just stay warm. The blizzard raged outside, but inside the cave, the Pirate King was the most protected man on the planet. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. High Stakes and Silk Gowns. The Thousand Sunny docked at glitter-gilded Grand Tessero, a satellite city of vice and neon lights that floated like a golden crown on the dark waters of the New World. This wasn't just a supply stop, an underworld auction was being held. And rumors suggested a rub-off of a Lost Road poneglyph was the grand prize. To enter the VIP sector, you need more than just a bounty, Nami explained, her eyes shimmering with the reflection of the gold-plated docks. You need to look like you own the world. We're going in as a royal entourage. Luffy was currently trying to eat a gold-leafed steak, plate and all. Into what? Can't I just kick the door down? No, Nami and Hancock shouted in unison. The Queen's Council had decided, if Luffy was to be the Harem King, he had to look the part. Within hours, the Sunny's dressing rooms were a whirlwind of silk, lace, and high-tier hockey. When the group finally emerged onto the gangplank, the dockworkers dropped their tools in shock. Luffy was dressed in a deep crimson suit with a black captain's coat draped over his shoulders, his straw hat cleaned and hanging by its string. But it was the escort that stopped hearts. Hancock wore a backless, floor-length gown of imperial purple, her serpent Salome acting as a living diamond necklace. Nami was in a daring, emerald green silk dress that matched the color of her berries. Vivi chose a traditional alabasta evening gown of flowing blue, looking every bit the sovereign. Yamato, refusing to wear a dress, opted for a sharp, sleeveless white tuxedo that highlighted her towering strength, while Robin looked lethal in a form-fitting black cocktail dress. Shishishi, I feel like a fancy penguin. Luffy laughed, tugging at his tie. You look like a king, Hancock whispered, sliding her arm through his. My king. Back off, Hancock, Nami muttered, taking his other arm. This is a business operation. I'm the financial advisor. As they entered the Grand Casino, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. The Pirate King hadn't just arrived with a crew. He had arrived with a pantheon. The sheer political and martial power walking through the lobby was enough to make the CP0 agents in the corner sweat. The auction was held in a private theater. The host, a scarred man with a monocle, stuttered as he saw the group take the central booth. Next item, as promised, the rub-off of the Crimson Stone. 1 billion berries, Nami shouted before the bidding even started, using the money sheet, borrowed, from the casino's vault earlier that evening. A voice called out from the darkness of a rival booth. 2 billion. Pirate King shouldn't be allowed to buy his way to the top. It was Stussy of CP0, leaning out of the shadows. The world government can't let this harem of yours become a legitimate political bloc, Straw Hat. Luffy stood up, his playful demeanor shifting. The Conqueror's hockey began to leak out, vibrating the champagne flutes on the tables. I don't care about blocks or politics. But my friends worked hard to get me here. And Nami wants that paper. Hancock stood beside him, her eyes turning cold. You dare challenge the man I've chosen? Slave arrow. Wait, Vivi called out, placing a hand on Hancock's shoulder. If we fight here, the rub-off gets destroyed in the crossfire. Let the princesses handle the negotiations. Vivi stepped forward, her voice ringing with the authority of the Nefertari line. Stussy, if you bid against us, Alabasta, Dressrosa, and the Ryugu Kingdom will formally withdraw from the next 5 trade agreements with the world government. Can your superiors afford that loss just for a piece of paper? The logic was a different kind of weapon. Stussy paled. This was the true power of the Harem King, not just Luffy's fists, but the combined diplomatic weight of the women who loved him. The CP0 agent sat down, silenced. Going once, twice, sold to the Straw Hat entourage. The auctioneer squeaked. As they walked out with the prize, Luffy grinned at Vivi. That was so cool, Vivi. You beat her without even punching. Vivi smiled, leaning in to kiss his cheek. There are many ways to fight for you, Luffy. Hey, no fair, Hancock and Nami yelled. St. The group descended back into the neon lights of the city, the harem, more united than ever. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The Steam of Competition. The Queen's Council decided that after the high-stakes tension of Grand Tessero, the Pirate King and his court required a period of rest. They set course for Blue Lagoon Island, a volcanic paradise famous for its springs of eternal youth, natural hot-s. Springs said to heal any wound and melt away any stress. As the Thousand Sunny dropped anchor in the sapphire blue bay, the crew was greeted by the scent of sulfur and tropical orchids. All right, Luffy cheered, already stripping off his crimson suit jacket. Cannonball. Wait, Luffy, Nami yelled, catching him by the collar of his shirt. This is a high-class resort. We have private villas, and more importantly, she lowered her voice, glancing at the other women, we have the spa protocol to follow. The protocol was a new addition to the treaty. On an island dedicated to relaxation, the sea, competition for Luffy's attention had shifted from diplomatic weight to physical presence. The hot springs were carved into the side of a black basalt cliff, overlooking the sunset. Luffy sat in the largest pool, the water bubbling around his rubber skin. Ah, this is even better than a bath in a barrel. My bones feel like noodles. The piece lasted exactly 30 seconds. The sliding bamboo doors creaked open, and the women of the council entered. If the auction was about elegance, the spa was about raw, distracting beauty. Hancock entered first, wrapped in a sheer silk robe that did little to hide her status as the world's most beautiful woman. She sat directly next to Luffy, the steam clinging to her skin. Luffy-sama, the water is warm, but it pales in comparison to the fire in my heart. Allow me to wash your back. I've got it, Nami interrupted, stepping into the pool with a towel and a determined look. I've been his navigator since the beginning. I know every scar on his back better than anyone. It's a navigator's job to ensure the hull is well maintained. That makes no sense. Vivi laughed, joining them, her hair tied up in a loose bun. But if we're talking about maintenance, Alabasta's royal spas have techniques that can rejuvenate even the most tired rubber man. Luffy, let me show you the desert-style shoulder rub. Yamato tumbled into the water with a massive splash, nearly emptying half the pool. Wahaha, you're all too delicate. A real warrior needs a deep tissue pummeling. Luffy, prepare for the Odin-style, invigorating soak. Luffy was quickly submerged in a flurry of bubbles, silk, and competitive splashing. Gub-glub. Hey, too many hands. I can't find my soap. Robin sat on the edge of the pool, dangling her legs in the water. She used her mille fleur ability to sprout dozens of arms, which began to systematically give everyone, including the bickering women, a simultaneous neck massage. Now, Robin said calmly. If we drown our king, the council will have failed its primary objective. The tension eased as Robin's powers forced a level of relaxation upon them. For a moment, the only sound was the bubbling of the spring and the distant cry of gulls. Hey, guys, Luffy said, popping his head above the water, his face beat red from the heat. I was thinking, when we find the One Piece, we should make an island just like this. One where everyone can just eat and sleep and nobody has to fight over who sits where. Hancock's eyes welled with tears. A kingdom, just for us. Yeah, Luffy grinned. A kingdom of freedom, and everyone here is invited to be the, what did you call it, Nami? The queens. Nami looked at the sunset, then at the gathered women, enemies turned allies, princesses turned pirates. She felt a rare sense of contentment. The queens of the Pirate King. It has a nice ring to it. The peace was shattered when Brook's voice echoed from the men's side of the wall. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Luffy-san, may I see? He was promptly silenced by a flying wooden bucket launched with hockey-infused precision by Nami. In your dreams, skeleton. As the stars began to poke through the twilight, the harem sat in the warm water, surrounding their king. The world was still full of emperors and marines, but in this steaming lagoon, there was only the laughter of a man who had won the hearts of the world's most powerful women without even trying. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The Siren of Jealousy. The Thousand Sunny sailed into the misty waters of the Aphrodisia archipelago, a chain of islands shaped like interlocking hearts. The air here was heavy with a sweet, cloying perfume that made even the stoic Zoro feel a bit lightheaded. Something's wrong, Robin noted, her eyes narrowing at the pink-hued fog. This isn't natural weather, it's a localized fruit ability. Suddenly, a sleek, rose-colored ship intercepted them. Standing on the prow was a woman named Dulcet, a former rival of Hancock's who had consumed the Amy no Mi model siren. She was known as the Heart Thief, a woman who could weave webs of artificial infatuation. So, the Pirate King has a collection now. Dulcet laughed, her voice vibrating with a hypnotic frequency. But he looks so bored. A man like that needs a woman who can command his soul, not just his stomach. She blew a kiss toward the sunny. A shimmering wave of pink energy washed over the deck. Luffy blinked, his eyes glazing over for a split second. Luffy, Nami cried out, but as the mist cleared, Luffy was looking at Dulcet with a strange, wide-eyed expression. Hey, she has a really cool ship, Luffy said, his voice monotone. I think I should go talk to her. Maybe she has better meat. The Queen's Council felt a collective shiver of absolute rage. Artificial attraction. Hancock's hockey flared so violently the sea around the ship began to boil. You dare attempt to override his true feelings with a cheap imitation of my beauty. You are a worm in the presence of a goddess. Dulcet smirked. Oh, the Empress is jealous. But look at him, he's already walking toward the railing. My silk of obsession is unbreakable. Luffy was indeed shuffling toward the side of the ship, but then he stopped. He tilted his head, sniffing the air. Wait, her ship smells like flowers. I don't like flowers. Flowers aren't bacon. The silk of obsession hit a wall, the wall of Luffy's singular obsessive appetite. Now, Vivi commanded. While she's confused, the defense was a masterpiece of coordinated spite. Vivi and Rebecca launched a pincer maneuver, their blades cutting through the pink mist. Reiju leapt through the air, her poison pink wings fluttering as she released a cloud of neutralizing pheromones. Your toxins are amateur, Reiju whispered, landing on Dulcet's deck. You tried to drug a man who has lived on poison and adrenaline for years. Hancock didn't use a subtle approach. She performed a slave arrow volley that turned Dulcet's entire mass to stone, followed by a perfume femur kick that sent the siren flying into her own cabin. Luffy belongs to the sea, Yamato roared, swinging her kanabo to blow away the remaining mist. And to us, not some pink-haired spider. Nami walked up to Luffy and slapped a piece of beef jerky into his hand. The contact in the food snapped him out of the trance instantly. Huh, where'd the flower lady go? Luffy asked, chewing happily. She went for a swim, Nami said, her eyes still burning. Luffy, listen to me. If anyone tries to give you special heart meter magic juice, you say no. Got it, Luffy laughed, rubbing the back of his head. Shishishi, why would I do that? I already have the best food right here. And you guys look really scary when you're mad. I like you better when you're smiling. The rage evaporated instantly. Hancock melted into a puddle of devotion, Vivi giggled, and even Nami couldn't help but sigh. He's immune to the fruit, Robin observed, not because his heart is empty, but because it's already so full of us that there's no room for a web to take root. The Queen's Council looked at their king, then at each other. They had just defeated a specialized fruit user in seconds. Not because of duty, but because they were the fiercest guardians of the sun god's joy. Let's get out of here, Vivi said, taking the wheel. Next stop, Raftel. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Echoes of the Heart. The Thousand Sunny entered a pocket of the sea known as the Mirror Shallows, where the water was so still it perfectly reflected the sky, creating the illusion of sailing through the stars. Legend said these waters were haunted by the Echo Poneglyph, a sentient stone that tested the resolve of those seeking the Pirate King's mantle. Suddenly, a thick, silver fog rolled in. One by one, the crew vanished into the mist, leaving Luffy standing alone on the deck. Oi, Nami, Sanji, where'd everyone go? Luffy shouted, his voice swallowed by the silence. The mist didn't answer with words, but with visions. 6 pillars of light erupted around the deck, each containing a memory of the women who now stood by his side. But these weren't happy memories. They were the moments of their greatest pain, the chains that Luffy had broken. In the first pillar, Luffy saw Nami crying in the dust of Arlong Park, stabbing her own arm to erase the tattoo of her captor. In the second, Vivi stood atop the clock tower in Alabasta, screaming for a war to stop while no one heard her. In the third, Robin sat in the dark of Eni's lobby, waiting for the Buster Call to erase her existence. Hancock's vision showed the brand of the celestial dragon burning into her skin, Rebecca's showed the cold bars of the gladiator prison, Yamato's showed the chains on her wrists in the shadow of Kaido. A deep, booming voice echoed from the mist. Pirate King, you claim these souls as your court. But a king is a burden. Their pain is now your weight. To pass, why? Oh, you must choose who among them is your one true queen. The others will be returned to their islands, safe, but forgotten by your heart. Luffy's shadow grew long across the deck. His jaw tightened, the air around the sunny began to vibrate with the sheer pressure of his haki. Choose. Luffy's voice was low, vibrating with a Gear 5 pulse. I don't choose between my friends. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you do not choose, the voice thundered, the illusions of their pain will become reality once more. They will suffer their pasts forever. Luffy didn't hesitate. He slammed his fist into the deck, activating his conqueror's haki at a level that shattered the glass-like surface of the sea. I already broke those chains. I already stopped the war. I already told Robin I wanted her to live. He stepped toward the pillars, his hands reaching into the light. Nami isn't just my navigator. Vivi isn't just a princess. They're my family. If you want a king who only cares about one person, go find someone else. I'm the man who's gonna be the king of everyone. With a roar, Luffy unleashed a Gum Gum Don Gatling, directed not at the visions, but at the fog itself. His rubbery fists moved so fast they created friction fire, burning through the supernatural mist. I'll take all their pain, Luffy screamed, and I'll give them all my meat. That's what a king does. The silver fog shrieked and dissipated. The illusions shattered like glass. Luffy gasped for air, kneeling on the deck. Suddenly, he felt multiple pairs of arms wrap around him. The mist had cleared, and the women were back, tears in their eyes, having seen the entire trial from within their pillars. They had heard his refusal to choose. You idiot, Nami sobbed, burying her face in his red vest. Yo, you were supposed to pick the one true queen, to save yourself the trouble. I don't want a queen, Luffy grunted, a tired but triumphant grin spreading across his face. I want all of you. Because a king without his friends is just a guy with a fancy hat. Hancock knelt beside him, her pride completely gone, replaced by a fierce, protective love. Then we shall be your shield, your sword, and your heart. All of us, forever. The mirror shallows began to glow with a gentle, warm light. The trial was over. The Harem King hadn't just proven his strength, he had proven that his greed for the happiness of his friends was the most powerful force on the sea. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. The Shadow of the Five Elders. The news of the Sun God's court had finally reached the highest peak of Mary Geoise. Inside the Room of Authority, The 5 elders sat in a circle of suffocating silence. On the mahogany table lay a stack of photographs. Luffy laughing with the Empress of the Kuja, Luffy Shish, airing a toast with the Princess of Alabasta, and Luffy standing flanked by the heirs of Dressrosa and the Vinsmoke line. It is no longer just a pirate crew, the elder with the scarred brow muttered, his voice cold. He is consolidating the ancient bloodlines. If he reaches Laugh Tale with this harem, he won't just find the One Piece. He will have the political infrastructure to replace the world government in a single day. The influence of the Straw Hat is a virus, another added. We cannot send an admiral. They have already proven they can repulse one. We need the God's Knights. Far out at sea, the Thousand Sunny was enjoying a rare moment of peace. Luffy was napping in the grass on the deck, his head resting in Robin's lap while Nami and Vivi went over the charts. The tranquil ITY was shattered when the sky itself seemed to split open. 6 figures descended from the clouds, cloaked in ivory robes and wielding weapons that hummed with a terrifying, celestial energy. These we, the God's Knights, the personal enforcers of the world nobles. Monkey D. Luffy, the lead knight spoke, his voice sounding like grinding stone. Your existence has become an intolerable stain. By order of the 5 elders, the Sun God's court is to be executed. We will start with the women, so you may watch your kingdom crumble before you die. Luffy didn't move, but his eyes snapped open. He didn't stand up. He didn't have to. The Queen's Council stepped forward before the knights could even touch the deck. Execution. Hancock laughed, her haki turning the air purple. You speak to a king as if you are his superiors. You are nothing but dogs in white robes. You want to touch our captain. Nami's Klima attack began to crackle with black Zeus lightning. You'll have to get through the treasury first. And I'm very protective of my gold. The battle was unlike any the Grand Line had ever seen. The God's Knights fought with a ruthless, calculated precision, but they were facing a force they didn't understand. The women of the Sunny didn't just fight for themselves, they fought as a synchronized unit, fueled by a singular devotion. Hancock and Reiju became a whirlwind of stone and poison, neutralizing the Knights' physical enhancements. Vivi and Rebecca coordinated their strikes, their blades dancing in a rhythm that baffled the Knights' observation haki. Yamato, in her full divine wolf form, clashed with the lead knight, her kanabo creating shockwaves that parted the clouds. Why do you fight for him? The lead knight gasped, his ivory robe stained with blood. He is a chaos bringer. He offers you no status, no security. Vivi stepped forward, her blue hair whipping in the wind. He offers us the only thing the world government never could, the freedom to be exactly who we are. And in return, we give him the world. Luffy stood up then, walking past his protectors to face the wounded knight. He didn't look angry, he looked disappointed. You guys talk too much, Luffy said, his arm turning black with haki. If you're here to hurt my friends, you're already finished. Gum gum, Red Rock. The punch didn't just knock the knight back, it sent him spiraling into the horizon. A streak of fire across the sky. The remaining knights, seeing their leader defeated by a combined front of love and power, retreated back into the clouds. Luffy turned back to the women, his grin returning. See, I told you guys were the best. They didn't even stand a chance. Hancock leaned against him, breathless. Of course, my love. As long as we stand together, even the gods will tremble. The message was sent back to Mary Geoise loud and clear. The Pirate King wasn't just a man. He was a dynasty. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The Threshold of the Dream. The new world was screaming. The closer the Thousand Sunny drew to the final coordinates, the more the weather patterns defied the laws of nature. Waterspouts made of golden light spiraled into a sky that transitioned from midnight purple to blood orange every few minutes. Luffy stood on the figurehead, his hand shading his eyes. He wasn't looking at the storms, he was looking at the horizon where a strange, rhythmic humming seemed to originate. It's there, he whispered, a rare seriousness in his voice. I can hear it, the sound of the drums. The Queen's Council gathered on the deck behind him. For the first time, the bickering had stopped. The weight of what lay ahead, Laugh Tale, the truth of the world, and the end of their journey, settled over them like a heavy cloak. Luffy, Nami said, stepping forward with the final set of charts. The magnetic field is gone. The log pose is spinning in circles. From here on out, we sail on instinct alone. Then let's go, Luffy shouted, throwing his arms wide. Full speed ahead, but as the Sunny dipped into a massive bank of shimmering white fog, the atmosphere changed. This wasn't the mirror shallows or a marine trap. This was the boundary of history. Before we reach the end, Vivi said, her voice trembling slightly, we need to talk about the after. Once you become the king, Luffy, the world will expect a throne. They will expect a line of succession. They will expect you to rule. Hancock stepped up, her hand resting on the hilt of her dagger. I have already prepared the Kuja for the transition. We will provide the naval guard for your new capital. And Alabasta will provide the grain and the diplomacy, Vivi added. The Vinsmokes have the technology to shield your borders, Reiju noted, her eyes fixed on the fog. Luffy turned around, looking at the women who had become his cabinet of hearts. He saw the empress who had defied the marines for him, the princess who had journeyed across oceans, the navigator who had kept him on course, and the archaeologist who held the keys to the past. A throne, Luffy laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the fog. I don't want a throne. Thrones are for people who want to stay in one place. I'm the king of the sea because I'm the one who gets to go wherever I want. But the world, Rebecca started. The world can do whatever it wants. Luffy interrupted. When we find the One Piece, I'm gonna tell everyone that they're free too. And then, we're gonna have the biggest party in history. On every island. At the same time, Robin smiled, a tear escaping her eye. A king who rules through joy rather than law. It's exactly what Joy Boy would have done. Suddenly, the fog began to thin. In the center of the shimmering mist, a small, unassuming island appeared. It wasn't made of gold or covered in ancient fortresses. It was lush, green, and vibrantly alive, looking like a piece of the world that had never known a war. Laugh Tail, Robin whispered. As the Sunny's keel touched the sand of the final shore, Luffy hopped off the deck, landing with a soft thud. He didn't run for the treasure. Instead, he reached back and held out his hands. Come on, Luffy called out. Nami, Hancock, Vivi, everyone. We did it together. I'm not stepping onto this beach alone. One by one, the women of the council took his hands or followed in his wake. As they walked toward the center of the island, the Harem King and his queens, the very air seemed to vibrate with 1,000 years of laughter. They weren't just pirates reaching a goal, they were the new architects of a world where love was the only law that mattered. At the center of a clearing sat a single, massive chest and a stone tablet that told a joke so profound it changed the color of the sky. Luffy sat down in front of it, read the first line, and let out a roar of laughter that could be heard across the Grand Line. Shishishi, it's so simple, it was all just for fun. He looked back at his council, his eyes glowing with the dawn of a new era. Hey guys, I know what we're gonna do next. End of Chapter 12, Chapter 13, The Coronation of the Sun. The clearing at the center of Laugh Tale was bathed in an eternal, golden dusk. The One Piece wasn't just a pile of gold or a single crown, it was a vast, ancient record of a world without borders, coupled with a joy so infectious it resonated in the very soil. Luffy sat on a mossy stone, the Joy Boy's final message resting in his lap. He looked at the women gathered around him, the queens, the warriors, and the brilliant minds who had carried him to the finish line. The treasure, it's a story, Robin whispered, her fingers tracing the ancient script on the poneglyph nearby. A story of a man who wanted to share everything with everyone. He didn't want to be a king of a country. He wanted to be a king of a family. Luffy stood up, his Gear 5 aura shimmering like a halo. Then that's what we're gonna do. I've decided, I'm the king of the pirates now, right? The greatest to ever sail. Nami said, her voice thick with pride. Then my first act as king is a decree. Luffy shouted, his voice booming across the island. He looked at Hancock, then Nami, then Vivi, Robin, Yamato, Reiju, and Rebecca. I'm not gonna have one queen. That's boring and it makes everyone fight. I'm crowning the Harem of the Dawn. He reached into the treasure chest, but he didn't pull out gold. He pulled out a series of ancient, intricately carved rings, relics of the old kingdom meant for the companions of the sun god. Hancock, Luffy called out. The pirate empress stepped forward, her knees trembling. Luffy slipped a ring onto her finger. You're the queen of the fleet. No one's gonna touch our ships with you around. Luffy-sama. Hancock collapsed into a puddle of blissful tears. Nami, you're the queen of the horizon. You're the one who shows me where the adventure is. Nami took the ring, a rare, soft smile on her face. I'll make sure you never get lost, you idiot. Vivi, queen of the people, you're gonna make sure the world stays nice and everyone has food. Vivi bowed deeply, her blue hair shimmering. I will be your voice in every kingdom, Luffy. He continued until every member of the council wore a mark of his favor. To Robin, the Queen of Truth. To Yamato, the Queen of the Spirits. To Reiju, the Queen of the Shadows. To Rebecca, the Queen of Peace. As the rings were placed, a beam of light shot up from the center of Laugh Tale, piercing the clouds and broadcasting a signal to every Den Mushi in the world. The image of Luffy, flanked by his 7 queens, appeared on every screen from Marineford to the smallest village in the East Blue. "Oi, world," Luffy shouted into the light, his grin stretching from ear to ear. "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, I found the One Piece. And I'm not coming back to rule you. I'm coming back to have a party. And if anyone tries to stop my friends or my family, well, you'll have to deal with the strongest women on the sea first." The world went silent. The 5 elders watched in horror as the Sun God's court was formalized. It wasn't just a harem, it was a new global order based on affection rather than fear. Luffy turned back to his group. "Now, there's one more thing Joy Boy left in here. It's a bottle of the oldest sake in history. Sanji, get the cups." As the sun set on the old world, the new king sat with his hearts drinking to a future where they would never be apart. The competition hadn't ended. Hancock was already arguing with Nami about who got to sit on Luffy's lap for the furs. Tea toast, but the bond was sealed in golden history. To the Pirate King, they all cheered. To my queens, Luffy laughed. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. The Fall of the Old World. The Thousand Sunny emerged from the mists of Laugh Tale. But it was no longer a lone ship. As it crossed the threshold back into the new world, the sea was filled with the white gold sails of the Kuja, the desert sun flags of Alabasta, and the towering shadows of the Germa 66 fleet. Luffy's coronation had ignited a fire that was consuming the old power structures of the world. "Report," Nami commanded, her new royal ring glowing as she gripped the railing. "The world government has mobilized everything," Robin replied, her eyes closed as she used her powers to listen across the distance. "The 5 elders have ordered a total erasure. They've unleashed the ancient weapon, Uranus, and it's heading straight for the glistening atoll, the place we called home." Luffy stood on the figurehead, his red coat billowing. He wasn't laughing now. His eyes were fixed on the dark, metallic sphere descending from the clouds in the distance. "They're trying to blow up our party island. That's not happening." The Queen's Council didn't need orders. They were a symphony of destruction. "Hancock, take the left flank. Turn their battleships to dust," Vivi shouted, taking her role as the queen of the people. "Yamato, Ebika, protect the civilians on the shore. Reiju, neutralize their chemical weapons." The sky turned a bruised purple as the world government's final trump card began to glow. A beam of pure, Celestia, L energy gathered at the base of the floating weapon, aimed at the heart of the atoll. "I'll take the weapon," Luffy said, his body beginning to steam. "But I need a path." "You have it," Nami declared. She raised her klima tact, and with the help of the other women's haki, she channeled a localized hurricane that acted as a wind tunnel, clearing the atmospheric interference. Hancock leapt from her ship, her marrow creating a path of petrified sea foam for Luffy to run across. Reiju and Robin used their combined powers to sprout massive wings and hands, lifting Luffy higher into the air than he had ever gone. Luffy reached the clouds, his silhouette becoming a giant against the sun. "Hey, old guys in the castle, you don't get to decide who lives anymore. Gum gum, Bajrong Gun, the fist of the sun god, infused with the collective hope of his harem and his crew, collided with the ancient weapon. The sky fractured, the shockwave blew back the marine fleet for miles, and the Edelic sphere of Uranus shattered into a million falling stars. As the debris fell harmlessly into the ocean, the remaining marines dropped their weapons. They looked up at the sky, where Luffy was being caught in midair by a giant, cuerpo fleur, hand and gently lowered back to the deck of the Sunny. "It's over," Vivi whispered, looking at the sinking flags of the world government. "The age of the elders is dead." Luffy landed on the deck, breathing hard but grinning. He was immediately swarmed. Hancock held him from behind, Nami hugged him from the front, and the others crowded around, a wall of warmth and victory. "Is the meat okay?" Luffy asked, making everyone burst into laughter. "The meat is fine, my king," Hancock said, kissing his forehead. "And the world is finally ours." "Not ours," Luffy corrected, looking at the horizon. "Everyone's. But the best part is right here." They sailed toward the glistening atoll, not as fugitives, but as the architects of the new era. The Island of Love was no longer a dream. It was the capital of the free world. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15. The Dawn of the Eternal Banquet. The glistening atoll had been transformed. No longer just a neutral supply stop. It had become the Isle of the Sun, the unofficial capital of a world without borders. The white sands were covered in miles of silk carpets, and the scent of roasting sea king meat wafted all the way to the Red Line. Today was the day the world had waited for, the Grand Union. Luffy stood in front of a mirror in the royal pavilion, tugging at a ceremonial white cape that Frankie had lined with gold-plated armor. "Oi, Zoro, is this really necessary? I can't move my arms for a Gatling." Zoro, leaning against the doorframe with a bottle of sake, smirked. "Just for today, Captain. You're not just a pirate. You're the man who has to say, 'I do,' 7 times without passing out." The ceremony took place at high noon under the shade of the great sakura tree, brought as a sapling from Drum Island. Thousands of representatives, from the fish men of the deep to the Scythians of the clouds, watched in hushed awe. One by one, the queens of the dawn walked down the aisle of flower petals. Hancock came first, her red wedding kimono trailing 20 feet behind her, her head held high with the pride of an empress who had finally claimed her heart's desire. Then came Nami, carrying a bouquet of golden tangerines, Vivi. Draped in the royal silks of Alabasta, Robin, elegant in a dress embroidered with the history of the world, Yamato, wearing a traditional white haori, Rebecca, in shimmering plate mail and lace. In Reiju, her pink wings translucent in the sunlight, Luffy stood at the altar, looking at them. For once, he wasn't thinking about the next island or the next fight. He looked at the women who had bled for him, navigated for him, and loved him when he was just a boy in a small boat. "I'm not good at big speeches," Luffy said, his voice carrying across the silent beach. "And I don't really know how to be a husband. But I know this, I want to eat with you every day. I want to protect your dreams. And I want to be the person who makes you laugh for the rest of our lives." He didn't wait for a priest. He grabbed a giant jug of sake, the cups of brotherhood, grown into cups of matrimony, and took a massive gulp before passing it to Hancock. "To the new world," Luffy roared, "to our king." The queens replied in a single, unified voice. The celebration that followed lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. The Marines, now a peacekeeping force led by Kobe and D. Fujitora, toasted with the revolutionaries. The Kuja danced with the Alabasta Royal Guard. In the center of it all, Luffy sat on a throne made of driftwood and meat bones, with Nami leaning on his shoulder and Hancock feeding him grapes. While Robin read stories to the children of the island. He had found the One Piece, he had toppled the gods, and he had won the hearts of the most powerful women in history. As the sun set on the final day, casting a golden path across the sea, Luffy looked out at the thousand sunny anchored in the bay. "Hey, Nami," Luffy whispered. "Yeah, Luffy, the sea is still pretty big, right?" Nami laughed, squeezing his hand. "The biggest. Why, planning a honeymoon?" Luffy grinned, his eyes sparkling with the same fire he had when he first left Fusha village. "I was just thinking, we have a lot of queens now. We're gonna need a bigger boat." The world was at peace, the treasure was found, and the legend of the Harem King was only just beginning. For Monkey D. Luffy, the greatest adventure wasn't the one he had finished. It was the one he was living every single day, surrounded by the people who loved him most. End of chapter 15. End of story. And this is where today's story comes to an end. But the legend is far from over. Because in this timeline, Luffy didn't just chase freedom. He reshaped the very meaning of it. The seas will rise. The world will resist. And the path of the Harem King has only just begun. If you want to see how this new era unfolds, if you want to witness destiny break under sheer will, then stay with One Piece. What if? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment what part of the future you want rewritten next. Until the next chapter, the seas are waiting.